Something feels off about being human right now. There's so much mistrust, a lot of drama. It's like collectively we've lost the ability to just be with each other. What I mean by that is that disagreements feel awfully personal these days. People get triggered so easily. Everyone thinks they're right because they have access to information like never before. Today, I want to talk about what is energetically happening in the world right now and how in the future, the most important skill wouldn't be what you know, how much you know, right? It's going to be how well you can stay human. Hi, I'm Casey, an emotional alchemy guide. I'm here to hold safe, sacred places for sensitive, intuitive beings like yourself to connect with your inner world again so that you can learn to skillfully use your emotions as the guiding compass and reach the healing and the self-growth that you so desire. In this YouTube space, I'm really excited to share weekly videos on all things related to healing, spirituality, energetics, somatic, and practices. So if you don't want to miss out on any episodes, make sure to subscribe. What inspired me to make this video today is that I noticed people's emotional intelligence is just on this drastic decline. And here are a few things that I noticed. First one, so obvious to me, is that we can't seem to disagree anymore without it meaning something about us, without feeling defensive, feeling attacked, feeling like we need to take it personally. What I feel is that our opinions have become, like our perspectives have become our entire identity. And it's like we cannot receive anything that is different from what we know to be true without feeling like it's a personal attack. Disagreements used to be normal. You know, of course, we're all different people having access to different lives, different worldviews, and we have different friend group. No two people are going to be identical, right? Even your parents and you, your partner and you. We all have our differences. And I feel like in the past, it was a lot more tolerated to have different ideas on how life is and simply have discussions. The second thing that I notice is that we're consuming more than ever, but we're processing practically nothing. Information, obviously, it's so accessible right now. Everything that you need to know, you can Google, you can ask ChatGPT, it's on the news. Like, information is just everywhere. But our nervous system wasn't actually meant and designed for this. The thing that I'm noticing these days is that we're receiving and consuming so much, you know, social media, news, but we're processing nothing. So everything in our system, they just build and build and build and build and build. So no wonder we have become collectively so on edge, right? So easily triggered. It's like one small thing happens that doesn't really go our way. And yeah, I'm sure you've met one of those people. They completely overreact. It's like they feel attacked, they're angry, they lash out. And there are moments, you know, even I myself, I become a beautiful friend once told me, like, half conscious. It's like we know all these things, right? It's very hard to unlearn everything that you've seen. But at times we're still human, so we can become half conscious. We know these things, but we don't always do what's best. So what I mean by this is I know that our nervous systems are not meant and designed for constant stimulation, but when I'm not super aware and connected to myself, I still sometimes have these little habits like constantly playing music in the background or having a TV show playing or like scrolling before I sleep for like an hour or two. And then after some time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can feel that my system is just clocked. It's like there's so much going on that there's not one moment of silence and peace for me to properly process everything that I'm even absorbing. And one sign that I can notice immediately is that my processing time is really slow. It's like I go into one room and then I just forget why I was even there. Or someone told me something 5 minutes ago and I'm like, what did you say? Or simple math, you know, I can't really do simple math. And those, to me at least, everyone might be different. To me at least, those are all signs that, okay, my system's really clocked right now. And I need to give myself some space, some silence in between activities to just process and be with life so that the information in our system gets to flush, get to absorb, get to be wired in. But of course, none of us were really taught how to pay attention to our body, and especially in this day and age where information is everywhere and we're practically taught to be overstimulated, our body has this very natural reaction that it just builds and builds and builds, and then we become really on edge. We become really reactive to things without really knowing what's happening. And the third thing I notice is a little related to the first 2 points I mentioned, is that I notice how our curiosity is dying. Think about it. When was the last time someone said or shared information they've just learned that might completely contradict to how you see the world, right? And instead of defending yourself immediately in your head, deciding that no, that's not true, when was the last time you actually paused, stayed open and curious, and ask them, tell me more? We don't do this because it's almost become our second nature to be defensive instead of hearing what the other person thinks or how they even came about such information. We are preparing a list of defenses and things to rebut, and we are trying to essentially make everyone we know the same as us. So it's related to the first two things because it's like our whole perspective and life view becomes our personal identity, and it's really hard to stay centered and neutral when our system is kind of clocked, right? And we're becoming really reactive. It's like the instinctive thing we want to do is to defend our worldview. And so there's not a lot of room for curiosity to be. As I reflect on these things that I'm noticing, I'm also thinking about what is underneath all this and why is this happening so frequently now? I believe that collectively we're going through a big shift. Whether you're looking at it through the lens of, say, astrology, which says we're in the age of Aquarius, or maybe ancient cycles, suggesting that we're currently in the Kali Yuga phase. In Chinese Taoist feng shui perspective, we're now in the ninth kind of cycle out of the ninth cycle, so the final cycle. So all things point to how we're in some sort of crumbling, some sort of decentralizing, destructuring, so that new things can come about. And even if you don't believe in all these predictions and cycles and timing of things, you can also see it how powers crumbling in Hollywood, in government, in all things centralized system. People are questioning things more and more. And it seems like the more we're open to questioning things, the more is revealed to us, the files, different files, right? UFO files, JE files, what's happening behind the scenes in Hollywood, theology, religion, and all the scandals and things that we never expected that we would see, we are now seeing happening before our own eyes. So essentially, we're moving from centralized power to the people, from being told what to think, how to live your life, to now more and more people are thinking about themselves. What do I really want? What is this world and life really about? And this is such a beautiful thing, but it can also feel really disorienting because for a very long time, this wasn't our reality. So now essentially, it's a time where we have to figure things out ourselves. And the information that's available to us right now, it's not really happened in generations and generations. So there's no one way to be. There's no one right way to react and respond to this. And all of this requires a certain level of emotional capacity and maturity that we've frankly just never been taught. So as I mentioned earlier, it seems like things are crumbling down, and from an energetic, spiritual perspective, a lot of people know this time period as the purge, right? A lot of healings available, a lot of up-leveling is available. From what I noticed, this is the time where people are really breaking off from the known path and again thinking more for themselves, questioning things, wanting to find answers that's beyond the narrative that we've been fed for generations and generations. And this is also why I see that a lot of people are currently in this liminal space, essentially kind of like a period between different life phases where they feel like they've outgrown an old identity from who society wanted them to be, told them that they are, and to find a truer version of themselves. So if you're in this phase right now, it can feel like a very exciting but also confusing time. And I actually made a separate video last week, which I'll link in the description box below. Coming back to this period of time that can be known as the purge, a lot of emotional and healing themes are actually coming up for people, whether or not you want it to happen. And this is because I believe that the energy currently is pushing us to face what is true and what's needed to be faced. Whether on a personal level, there might be things that just simply no longer serve as beliefs and patterns and relationships, but maybe for a while we were able to avoid it. But in a time period like this one where everything is just accelerated and everything is being pushed to the surface, we're simply no longer able to avoid truth. And the same thing is happening on a collective level. You see that the people who, have been running things the same way that might not be the most, how do I say this? correct. They might have been able to run things from behind the scenes for many, many years, for generations and generations. But again, during this time of age, everything is being pushed to the surface. People know, people are aware, and they simply cannot do things the same way anymore. Underneath it all, during this time, we might think that the issue, the problem is that people are getting too emotional, too sensitive, too much. But what I feel is that that's not the problem. The problem is that we're feeling a lot because we're receiving so much information and so much is happening. We can sense the energy even if we're not following the news every day, right? And I think underneath it all, we're feeling so much, but we've not been taught what to do with those feelings. And if we keep on going like that, allowing things to build and build and build in our system, we're just going to go crazy. And when I'm reflecting on all these things that are happening and also what I notice, I just realized we have not been taught emotional intelligence, which is the one skill that is really going to be needed more than ever before if we are to be able to stay connected to ourselves, be able to stay human. Emotional intelligence, like how to work with our emotional capacity, how to be with discomfort, how to stay connected to ourselves and other people when disagreements occur, how to have empathy and empathize with other people, and so on and so on. And without connecting with our emotional intelligence, our default more and more will become whenever something doesn't go our way, whenever something's too much, disagreements happen, we're going to shut down, we're going to react, we're gonna blame each other. If this keeps happening, slowly and slowly, we will lose the ability to self reflect, to know ourselves as human beings, as well as knowing each other as human beings. Some of us might argue that that's fine because, with AI, so much is made available. We might not even need to talk to people in the future to get things up and running. And to me, that's the problem. AI can give us all the knowledge in the world, and yes, it can replace some things, but it cannot replace or teach us how to feel, how to be connected, and how to be human. And so today, I really wanted to talk about the lost art of emotional intelligence, because in this world that's getting faster and faster, more and more stimulation, I believe that the skill that will stand out 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now is the skill to be human. So, what does this all mean for you? Two things. One thing, I hope that me being here can serve as a reminder that your sensitivity, if you're feeling like it's a lot is happening and you don't know what, like that is all normal. And your sensitivity, your humanness is not an issue. If you're feeling more, if you're too stimulated, that is because that's how the world is right now. Which brings to my second point is what this means for you is also taking everything that is happening in the world right now as an invitation to expand and widen your emotional capacity. Not to numb out, not to shut off from the world forever, but to learn how to live with it, how to expand your emotional capacity to be able to hold it all. And in other words, it is actually sharpening your skill to be human. And you might ask, how can I start practicing that? And I would say, start by practicing the ability to stay with your discomfort. Because from what I see in this world that's getting more and more comfortable, physical level, mental level, like none of us have to survive like how our ancestors perhaps survived in the wilds. Mental comfort, like whenever we hear something that's not to our liking, we just shut down, we go to our echo chamber where we get a lot of support for our worldview. So first thing we're going to practice to expand our emotional capacity and our capacity to stay connected to being human would be to practice the skill of being in the discomfort. So this can be practiced in a few different layers. So first thing I'm going to talk about is physical discomfort. For example, I find that yin yoga is such a good practice ground for me to be with my uncomfortable feelings. And when I teach yoga, whenever we're in yin restorative poses, some of these really long, deep stretches, I find that more and more compared to a few years ago, more and more people get out of the pose a lot quicker. And they have all the justification like, oh no, my knee, my hip, where Not saying whether that's a bad or good thing. It's also, it can be looked at as a good thing that we're more connected to our body. We know what doesn't work for us. But it can also be true that more and more we're just not able to stay with our uncomfortable feelings. So our mind come up with all these justification of why we can't be there, right? So for me, as long as it's not like to the level of sharp pain or it's hurting my body, I love to use yin yoga and long stretches physically, things that I don't want to do, even if it's going out, moving my body on days where I just feel like covering myself in blanket and watching my favorite TV show, things like that. Pushing ourselves a little bit on a physical level, I find is a great way to actually practice being with the discomfort physically, but also mentally. And speaking of expanding the capacity of mental discomfort, I already talked about this a little earlier, but the next time you're in discussion, conversation with someone, and they bring up something that every part of you wants to disagree with, try to breathe, stay with that space and the trigger, and instead ask them to tell you more. And tell you more, not in a way like, okay, sure, tell me more so I can think of, rebuttal points in a moment or to defend yourself, but genuinely, and only you would know, genuinely staying curious and open and allow them, even if at the end of the day, we'll still disagree, but in that moment, facilitating and opening up the space for different perspectives to come in. Because as human beings, we can't know everything. And maybe, just maybe, there's something about this world that you haven't yet discovered. And if you can do this in one conversation or two conversations, I sometimes also like to on purpose put myself around people whose worldview is quite different from my own. It's a great practice being with people who see the world differently, because harmony isn't about everyone agreeing on the same thing, right? It's being able to hold disagreements without a big rupture, without a big drama or a big falling out. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've heard of the saying, but I hear it a lot that in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, sure, there are going to be arguments and nothing's perfect. Like 10 out of 10 relationship is like that, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be dating ourselves. We want to be with someone because on an unconscious, subconscious level, we want to expand our worldview. And maybe I'll make another video on this, because on a healing perspective, it's also like we need each other as mirror to be our blind spot mirror, right? So if you can practice staying in connection with someone, even if you don't see eye to eye, that is your emotional intelligence capacity building and building and building, which is a wonderful thing. And everything that this video today is about. And essentially, one skill that would make all the prior practices I mentioned a lot easier to handle would be to first practice the skill of taking a pause between feeling and reacting. And this is where tools come in. Whatever your tool may be, breath work, breathing, meditation, affirmation, the space between feeling and reaction, the more space you can create between the two, the more self-agency, the more choices you have access to. Like, how do I want to choose to react? The more choices you have, which essentially would be the thing that help us grow as human being. And if you don't have any tools in your tool belt yet, my favorite tools are EFT tapping, breathing, pranayama, but also breath work, somatic embodiment, paying attention and inquiring what is happening in the body. And these are all great tools to help with nervous system regulation. And this is how we can still access our feeling, but without drowning in them, without being consumed by them. If you're interested, I have recorded a couple of self-guiding bundles where all the practices that I just mentioned are included in there. So I will link that in the description box as well. So here's what I believe about the future. In the future, the people who will stay the most grounded, the most emotional alive, the most at peace are not the ones who know the most, right? We have AIs and robots for that, but they'll be the ones who can stay connected to what makes them human the most. And what I mean by this is everything we just talked about: emotional regulation, capacity to hold disagreements, the ability to connect with other people, to empathize with other people. In fact, let me just have a little, I actually Googled the other day, like, what sets humans apart from robots, right? And Okay, this is Google. It says humans are separated from robots primarily by our biology, subjective experience, and consciousness. While robots operate on programmed algorithms and logic, humans possess independent free will, genuine emotions, empathy, and the ability to find intrinsic meaning and purpose in our lives, which is everything that I'm passionate about. You know, reading this made me wonder if maybe my life path is to help people stay connected to their humanness. Okay, coming back to today's topic. These are all the skills that scrolling won't help you, AI won't teach you. You know, these are really skills that are intrinsically human that are gonna help you stay being human. So if you're feeling the intensity of the world right now, yes, you're human. You should, because there's a lot happening right now. The world feels more divided than ever before, but from what I'm seeing, it also means that there's such an invitation for us to choose who do we want to be in the future? What do we want to do with our lives now that everything is happening the way that it is. On a personal level, on a collective level, we truly are in this liminal space where old structures are crumbling and there are seemingly infinite possibilities on how we want to choose our future to be. And if you resonate with my channel, my teachings, these videos that I make, and maybe it is your choice as well to pick up on this lost art of emotional intelligence. Thank you for tuning in to today's video. It is a really important one for me to make because I've been noticing all the changes going on around the world and as well as people that are in my circle for so long. So it feels really good to be able to address it all. And if you're looking for more support, as I mentioned, I've created several practice bundles for you to begin accessing practices like tapping, breath work, meditation, self-inquiry. And if you also notice that there's something inside of you that wants to be addressed, that wants to be processed and looked at, and you want personalized support, I'm also currently offering one-on-one. All the links and information will be down in the description box. All right, I'll see you soon.